All right, welcome to the Back to the Flipping Junkie podcast. This is episode 97. We almost reached 100. Today, I've got a very special guest, somebody I've been trying to get on the podcast since I started the podcast. And it's not that he didn't want to be on the podcast. It's our schedules never kind of worked out to where that happened. But I'm so happy to have Steve Cook on the show today. Steve's the author and founder of Lifeonaire, teaching thousands of people how to live and experience abundant lives. And he's flipped over 500 houses in his investing career and helps investors to transform their businesses from life-sucking to life-giving ventures. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And I want to start with a real quick story about how whenever I was getting started, I spent some time on Creative Real Estate Online. It was creonline.com. And I saw some posts from a guy by the name of Steve Cook, who I'm now talking to, and on the show here. And, you know, I was fascinated by his growth. He was so enthusiastic, so excited about his flipping in that forum and asking questions that, you know, I'd seen that he had sort of had success over the span of like 1 or 2 years, maybe 3, from going from not knowing a whole lot to being very successful. And so what I did was I searched for his name on that forum and read almost every post of his from the beginning. And it was really cool to see, you know, the questions that he was asking, and as he learned, and he would get advice and then go and do it and come back with new questions. And it was super, super helpful. And I used all of that to help expand my business, grow my business from not knowing a whole lot to. So Steve, you were one of my very first mentors and helped me. Even though we didn't communicate and I didn't ask you questions, I was going off of what you were asking and learned a whole lot from you. So I want to thank you first for just putting it out there, even though you didn't do it for that purpose. You know, thank you for being online and doing all of that.
You'd be surprised at how many people told me they printed out all of those posts, and that sort of became a course unto itself.
Yeah.
But in time, that was the reason I was doing it, was to give back. And I just have this passion for giving back and for helping other people to achieve the things that I've achieved.
And it's been quite a bit. I've followed you from there onto flippinghomes.com, which you were in for a long time, and then going into Lifeonaire. And it's an incredible book. I've got my copy right here. It's a little battered and has a lot of earmarked pages in it. But we'll talk about that. I wanted to first start, though, with you talking about your story. What got you interested in flipping houses and you know, growing your flipping business and then transitioning? And
well, for me, I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. Grew up in a home where we didn't have much, and you know, it was always a topic of discussion that, you know, if we just had more money, you know, life would be better. And that really had an effect on me, that from a young age, I just said, you know, I'm going to have money. I'm going to be wealthy. And that just really brought out this desire to have my own business. And as a teenager, I had already started pursuing my own businesses. I had started little things here and there. By the time I was 21 years old, I had already studied much about real estate investing and creative investing techniques. And at 21, I ended up buying a restaurant and bar. And that was sort of my first big thing that I had done. But I had used creative real estate investing techniques to get into that. It didn't last. I didn't make it too long with that, and won't get into all the details, just mostly just say that they didn't want to give a 21-year-old a liquor license, which was pretty smart on their part. And I didn't learn my lesson with that first one, so I bought another restaurant and bar when I was 25, and again, used creative real estate investing techniques. I got into it with no money down, and this was a much more substantial operation, and I ended up running that for a couple of years. But what I came to realize, I'll just tell you, when I bought it, I thought I was going to be rich. I thought I was on easy street. I was set for life. And shortly after getting into it, I realized that all I did was buy 2 jobs, and I was lucky if I could pay myself for one. And I was tired after 2 years, but again, it was a situation where that went under. And when it went under, my credit was completely shot. I was deep in debt. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was almost homeless at the time. And I started working a job and getting a paycheck every 2 weeks. And that felt good for a while because now I was actually getting paid for the work I did.
Do you think that maybe God was trying to keep you from the restaurant mistakes with the first one, and maybe it took, you were a little bit too stubborn and too driven to listen, and went into that second one, and
I learned an awful lot through those experiences, and I teach from those experiences today. When I did get another job, I went right into the restaurant business and was a manager for a large restaurant chain. But I'll tell you, I had one person over me, and the last thing in the world I wanted was to have somebody telling me what to do. And it actually felt good for a little while getting that paycheck. But when I wasn't the one making my schedule and somebody else was dictating my life, that entrepreneurial spirit was just starting to fire up again. And I was like, I can't do this for long. And I had to figure out what I was going to do, and went back to real estate investing. But I said, you know what, I'm going to become a real estate investor, but I'm going to do it right. I'm going to figure out the formula to this, and I'm going to do it. But my problem and challenge was I had no money. I was deep in debt. I barely had an income. My income as a manager for this restaurant was only about $35,000 a year. And that was just getting me by at that time. My credit was completely shot. So, I had everything going against me when it came down to being a real estate investor. How in the world am I going to become a successful real estate investor? From the shoes that I was in. And so I started just investigating and doing a lot of research and studying and doing everything I could to figure out, how do these people do it? Because I believe that some of these people are telling their stories, these rags to riches stories, some of them got to be real. And I eventually discovered, a type of investing that you could do, that you didn't need any credit, you didn't have to have any income, you didn't have to have any experience, you didn't have to have any money to get involved. And I looked at that and I said, well, I'm qualified for that, so maybe I need to look further into this. And that was wholesaling. And I started pursuing wholesale flipping, and it took me about 8 months to get my first deal. And during that time, most people would have given up. And I'll tell you, once I got that first deal, the light bulb went off, and I got it. I understood it. And so many people don't understand that it's mostly a mind game. And I knew everything that I was supposed to do. There was a part of me that didn't believe it could be done. And as soon as I got that first deal, within hours, 48 hours or so, I had people wanting to buy that property from me. And one of the guys who wanted to buy it from me then actually took me seriously once I had a deal. And he said, I'll take you under my wing, and if you can find properties for me. He taught me a couple of things. I found 7 more deals in the next 6 weeks for this guy. And then I go and I find the 8th deal, and he said, he passed on it. And then I was like, okay, why doesn't he want it? Now, today, hindsight, looking back, the guy just bought 7 houses in 6 weeks. He couldn't buy it anymore.
Starting to get a little picky. He didn't.
So I turned around and I flipped that 8th property to somebody else, and I made as much off of that one deal as I did off of the 7 with him. And I knew what I was going to do for the rest of my life. And I maintained the pace like that. My first 2 years in the business, I flipped 105 houses, and just continued on a pace like that for years to come.
Yeah, that's insane. That's amazing. And I like how you said that you knew what you needed to do, but you had a part of you that the belief wasn't fully there. Mm-hmm. And I was just reading a book from Shad Helmstetter, I think is what his name is. And he was talking about how we do things, what gets us to do things and doing them well. And starting from the top, he kind of reverse engineered it, where taking action is based on, whether we're motivated to or something like that. And then being motivated is based on your attitude of that topic or what you're doing. And then attitude is based on your belief of whether you can do it or how you feel about it. And I'm screwing this all up, but it's basically all boils down to belief though. And then, our programming is, what determines what we believe. And And so that just like shows you that, when people can overcome those base ones, the ones that originate all of that to get to where they can take action. And so when your belief was shown, and you had a strong belief because you just did it and you knew you could do it, it just took off. And I guess, wouldn't you say that the majority of new investors that, don't ever get over that belief part, where they feel like they can actually do that themselves and have a success at it?
Well, and that's one of the things that we really focus on with Lifeonaire, and I don't want to get ahead of ourselves just yet, but Lifeonaire is all about is the why, and having a why that you can believe in. And all too often when somebody comes to me and they tell me they want to become a successful real estate investor because they want to make a lot of money, that's usually not a good enough motivator to get them to do what they have to do. And right. My motivation and getting over that hump, and why I stuck with real estate investing those 8 months when I didn't get a deal, I saw many people fall to the wayside, after 30 days or 60 days or 90 days of not getting something, they walked away. And, I questioned that at times. I almost walked away. But the one thing I said to myself, I said, if I don't do this, 10 years from now, my life is going to look exactly the way it looks today. Mm. And that scared me more than the fear of maybe not succeeding right away, or, the fear of failing with doing a deal was not as bad as failing with doing nothing with my life. And that's what really pushed me over the edge and made me hang on and do what I needed to do to overcome that.
Yeah, I like that. So it's kind of weighing the discomfort of getting out there and dealing with the fears that you face right now versus, long-term regret that you didn't do anything.
I focused on the reward rather than the fear of failure.
Yeah, and I experienced the same thing. 9 months, I think, was what it was before we got our first deal. And my father was flipping houses, and I could see him doing it, and I knew he was doing it. But even with him knowing that he was doing it, I had moments 6 months in where I was thinking, maybe I'm not cut out for this.
Or this doesn't work.
I can't do that. Maybe it doesn't work for me. It worked for him. I don't know how, but it doesn't work for me. Maybe I'm not supposed to. And I almost quit too. And it's pretty amazing once you get through that first, getting over that first one. Mm-hmm. Getting over that first deal is really, and then because I think we had maybe 2 within the next a couple weeks after getting that first one. And just
that happens so often. It's crazy.
Yeah. So let's talk about the transition. So how many years were you flipping at the high rate like you were doing?
Well, after those first 2 years in the business, I didn't make that much money my first 2 years. I made a lot of mistakes, and I had a partner, and so things were getting divvied up. But I decided to sit down and really evaluate where this was going and evaluate the business in general, and what was working, what wasn't working. Came to realize that having the partner was not a good idea for me, and I made changes. And so 2 years of doing that and getting away and then starting to do things on my own, I made as much money in my first month by myself as I did in a whole year with my partner. And so to put things into perspective, this is going to go back to January of 2001. I made $40,000 in January of 2001. And at that time, I only needed about $25,000 a year to get by. My lifestyle was very lean. My credit was still shot. I couldn't borrow money to buy a car or anything like that. So I didn't have any car payments. And, within the first 3 weeks of the year, I had met my needs for the whole year. And then the next month, I made $60,000. And then in March, I made $70,000. And I continue to make this kind of money month after month after month. And now I'm trying to figure out, what do I do with this? I mean, I'm making all this money. I want to do the right thing. And I'm giving the money away. And I love helping people and ministries and places of need. And so I was giving a lot of it away. But the person I went to and I said, I want to do the right thing with my money, and I'm not sure what to do. I went to a pastor in my church, and he said, Steve, I'm going to introduce you to some people. And he introduced me to an estate planner. He introduced me to an accountant. He introduced me to other business owners who were very successful. And all of these people were very willing to come alongside of me and help me. They saw this young kid who was really making things happen, and had just such a big heart for doing right and doing good things. And they were all working on putting together a plan for me and telling me what it is that I should be doing. And they put together this plan, and I did exactly what they told me to do. I followed it step by step. And one of the things they said was, Steve, you need to go buy yourself a really nice home. You can afford it, get yourself a nice home. You need the write-off. So I went off, single guy. I bought a 5-bedroom, 4.5-bath home on 5 acres in one of Baltimore's nicest neighborhoods, and live in the house by myself. I went and bought my vacation home down in North Carolina, and I started putting together my rental portfolio. And long story short, I went from 0 in assets to over $7 million in assets in just a little over 3 years. And everyone is watching me, and it's like, everything this guy touches turns to gold. And, you should be doing what Steve does. And they kept sending people my way, and I'm getting my phone's ringing off the hook. Email is, people are emailing me, people are flying in from all around the country. They want to come pick my brain, see what I'm doing. And in the back of my mind, I was like, they don't really want what I've got. If they knew the truth, they don't want it. And I was struggling the whole time with, I don't feel successful yet. And I kept thinking, maybe I'm just one big deal away from that success, or there's just something else that has to happen. And so I started taking bigger risks. I started doing bigger deals and thinking, they all believe I'm already there, so I got to be close. And I'm working harder and working harder. And, I finally one day I just came to grips with, man, I used to have an awesome life before I had all of this. And, when I was that real estate investor was doing really well, and I went and I asked them, what is it that I should do? They put together this plan. And ever since, I have more money. I have more net worth. I own a lot of property. Everybody thinks I'm doing fantastic. I got a great reputation, but I don't have a life. And I'm working all the time trying to maintain this thing that they told me to put together. And I remember one night that I was in bed, and I couldn't get to sleep. And I was sitting there just thinking, and I just started adding up all of my debt, and I started thinking about my tax returns. And that night I came to realize I had $4.5 million in debt. And for the last 3 years, I had paid over $300,000 in interest that I was getting to write off. But I came to realize that I had to make over $300,000 just to pay the banks first before I could even think about keeping a nickel for myself. Mm-hmm. And I thought, okay, I'm doing that, but man, that's a lot of money. Why am I working that hard for them? And I just really started contemplating everything, and that things needed to change. Something had to give. And I had people always coming to me wanting me to teach them about real estate investing. And this one evening or 1 week, I had 2 gentlemen both come to me and said, Steve, I want you to teach me how to become a millionaire. And by this time, I started asking people why. Why do you want to become a millionaire? And in both cases, these men said, so I can be a better father and husband. And I said, guys, you don't need $1 million to be a better father or a better husband. That's simply a choice that you have to make, and you do the things that good fathers and good husbands do. And they both were argumentative and said, no, you don't understand. And I said, well, look, I do understand. I mean, I am a father too. And I get it. I know what you're feeling, but you don't need the money to do that. And while they kept insisting they did, I said, so let's just say I help you and you spend years trying to become a millionaire and you fail at that. Are you going to fail at being a father? Are you going to fail at being a husband because you didn't make this happen? Or are you going to, focus on that too? And again, both of them were sort of dismissive of me, thought I didn't understand. Yeah. And so I was just really in prayer about that one day. And what is it? What is it about this word millionaire that grips people? And during that prayer time, this word Lifeonaire just came to me, and I had never heard of Lifeonaire before. I mean, it's a new word; it doesn't exist. And I wrote down Lifeonaire, and just what was on my heart was what they really wanted to be was a Lifeonaire. They wanted to experience an abundant life, and they believed that money would get them there. And in that moment, I also realized that I was that same guy. What I really wanted was to live an abundant life. And money is just a vehicle. It's not having a bunch of money that I wanted. I wanted a great life. And that helped me to begin to start to change the focus of everything that I was doing in my business.
No, I like that story a lot. And I think a lot of us feel that way, that we get into this with hopes of, becoming better fathers and husbands and being able to give by getting a lot and building up all this wealth. And I don't know who said it, and I've heard it several times, but basically, if you're not giving right now, what makes you think you're going to give when you make that much more? Because when you reach that next level, all of a sudden the bar is set even higher, and it's a never ending thing. Like you were talking about, you had that everybody felt like you were there already, but you didn't feel like you were there already. And it's like, the reason why you're doing it wasn't to achieve that. It was the reason behind it. But I think, maybe sometimes when people say, no, but you don't understand, Steve, I want to be a millionaire, they're maybe thinking more in terms of like time freedom, right? Or having the ability to do all those things. But as, they grow the business like you did, you find that, maybe like the restaurant in a certain way, you're juggling a lot of things. And like you said, taking on a lot of that debt and, really finding that you're not building more freedom. You're actually losing some of your freedom as you're doing all of that. So what caused you to write the book? I mean, was there, because I absolutely love, I've got it right here. It's Lifeonaire. It's an amazing book. And I love the way it's written because it's all in story. It's not a dry, do this and do this and do this. Don't do this, do this. It's all in story. And I think a lot of us relate to the characters in the book. So where did the idea come from for the book?
Well, first, just going back a little bit to my own story, when I met with all of those people who so graciously helped me with putting together the plan of what it is that I should do, I came to realize that every single one of those people, when I was introduced to them and we sat down to develop my plan, not one of them said, Steve, what do you want your life to look like? Every single one of those people just assumed that my goal was to accumulate more wealth, to accumulate net worth, and to make more money. They just assumed that. And we're living in a world where that's sort of the American dream. The American dream has become very distorted. It's all about accumulating more and making more and having more. And that's not necessarily what we're looking for. And by default, when you walk into a financial planner's office or an accountant's office or an estate planner's office, everybody just by default, they go right down that path. And no one ever asks the question, what do you want your life to look like? And so I started realizing that I had bought into all of these lies, and the people around me were buying into the lies. The people I was teaching bought into the lies. And the lies are so subtle. They sound great. It sounds awesome. If you can make $50,000 a month, what would that do for your life? Well, that sounds great, but what do I have to give to make that 50,000? Is a question that somebody should ask before you start going down that path. And so Lifeonaire, when I decided I was going to write this book, by the way, it took me 9 years to write that book.
Wow.
And it took, I wanted it to be a book that when people read it, that they would not want to put the book down, that they would read it from cover to cover. And, the first few versions of the book, go ahead.
Well, I think you succeeded in that.
Yeah. We've heard that from many people that it's many cases, it's the first book people have ever read cover to cover. And they couldn't put it down, is what they tell us. But I kept going back and kept going back and kept going back. And I was writing it first as a nonfiction book. And it was Sean McCloskey who said, Steve, when you share the Lifeonaire message, you do it with your own stories and how things have been evolved. And that's what people listen to. That's what people want to buy into. And I think you should write the book as a fictional story. And that's when I changed gear and went down that fictional story route, and it all came together pretty quickly. And so the whole idea behind the book was helping people to relate to the characters in the book. We wanted everyone to be able to relate to somebody in that book and to see themselves in the story and to really realize that we believe we're doing things right. We're living in this world, we're playing by all the rules, we're following everything that the world around us says that we should do. but is that getting us what we really want?
Right.
And have we ever taken the time to think about what we want? Are we just doing what our parents want us to do, or our college buddies want us to do, or our coworkers want us to do, or are we living the life that we want to live? And the whole idea behind the book was helping people to see that and see themselves in these stories, that perhaps they're living somebody else's life and not the one that they really wanted to live.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, and taking the time to do things, like you said, it's like you want to be a better father and husband. You don't need to get the $1 million first.
Mm-hmm.
Start taking steps to making sure. And I think, there's the whole thing of a balance, and some people say there can't ever be balance. You're either going more one way and then back this way and all that kind of stuff. But you can say this or that works, or this better and or that's better. But really, at the end of the day, like you said, it boils down to what you're trying to accomplish, and reevaluating whether the money is what's going to get you there, or maybe that amount of money.
Well, money is a great thing, and it's a great thing in the hands of the right people who know what they're doing with it. Money can destroy the life of somebody who doesn't know how to handle it or how it works. And unfortunately, I think that's one of the lies that so many people have bought into is, they believe that having more money will make life easier. But that's the only thing in life that they believe more of is easier. Having more kids is more difficult. Being a teacher with more students is more difficult. More rental properties takes more time and more effort to manage them. It's not easier with more. It's not easier to manage more flips than it is less flips. But for some reason, people think that having more money makes life easier. And not necessarily the case. Easier to write more checks. But one of the things that I said that when I was first going through this process and making a lot of money and doing all the things that people told me to do, was just having more money just allowed me to be miserable. That sense of not having what I could go on vacations to nicer hotel rooms, but I didn't enjoy those vacations because I was so busy focused on the work and focused on the problems with work or the conflicts that were taking place, and somebody not doing what they were supposed to do. And, I was just always consumed with that, and it really affected my relationships. You've brought up time on a couple of occasions, and this is where Lifeonaire is so focused on, because at the end of the day, time is our life. And we live in a world that says, if you work hard, you'll be rewarded for it. And some of us are willing to just sacrifice and work and work and work in return for those rewards, but then we don't have the time to enjoy it. And we sign away, we give away our futures in hopes that one day it gives it back to us. We give away our lives and hope that we'll have success, that maybe 20, 30 years we can enjoy and then begin to experience the benefits of that. And at Lifeonaire, we say, well, why not enjoy it now?
Yeah.
Why do I have to wait? So we've helped many people who have, where they're working 60, 70 hours a week and making a good income, but they don't have a life. And so we've helped them to transform their businesses to where they're working 20 hours a week. And ironically, their income tends to double or triple when they do that, because now they understand the why behind their business. They know why their business exists in the first place. Before, it existed just to make a lot of money. Now it exists so that they can live the life that they want to live. And
how are you helping people do that? Is it a strategy? What are you doing to help? Because people out there are like, well, how do you do that? I mean, I'm going to not do as much and not work as hard, but I'm going to double my income, which is not what you're saying. You're just saying sometimes you see that happening. What is the sort of the overview of the process?
The very first step is putting that foundation in place. It's all of this stuff is foundational. If I sit here and I'm building a business to make money, and that's the goal of the business, then I'm willing to give of myself and give of my life, whatever it is, to make that business successful. And unfortunately, I don't count the cost of what did I just sacrifice with my life? What did I sacrifice in my marriage? What did I sacrifice with my kids? We have people do something that most people have never done. We sit down and we have them come up with a vision for their life. And that vision is not allowed to have money in it whatsoever. And It's a very difficult process for most people because that's the way they typically define their lives. If I ask people, what do you want your life to look like? Most of them tell me what they want their balance sheet to look like or how much passive income they want. And I say, well, no, you didn't understand the question. I said, what do you want your life to look like? And then I have to ask them, no, tell me, if you had all that money, how would you spend your time? How would you live your life? How would you experience it? And it's a difficult process because 99% of all people have never done this before. So we have them develop a life vision. And then the purpose of our business is to help us live that life. That becomes the why. And when people develop a life vision that they really embrace, now you start to look at your business in light of that vision and say, well, are these actions within my business going to get me closer to my vision or take me away? Is that new opportunity going to enhance my life or is it going to distract from my life? And you now have something to measure things against. And once you start to make decisions based off of that, and you say, well, I'm not going to be able to be the coach of my kids' football team if I take on this opportunity. Therefore, I'm not going to take on that opportunity because it won't help me to live the life I want to live. You start saying no to things that you would have said yes to before. And the things that you start saying yes to are the things that are really going to enhance the life that you want to live. And it forces you to become more efficient with your business. It forces you to do the most profitable things and get rid of the things that are not as profitable. And
forces you to say no to things,
exactly.
Opportunities.
And yes to the right ones, and gives you power to say no when you should be saying no. And it's really transforming people's lives. And all too often people become real estate investors and just pursue some good idea that somebody taught them, but it's not necessarily the right avenue or vehicle for them to live the life that they want to live. As a educator in the business, so often people wanted me to tell them that wholesaling was the best way for everybody to get started. I'd always say, well, I can't tell you that. You know, I would frustrate people to no end because they all wanted me to just have a pat answer. But I say, well, it depends. What are you trying to accomplish? You know, what skills and resources do you have? What do you want out of life? And there's so many different types of real estate investing, and you can't possibly know, and I can't possibly advise you which is the right one for you until I know what it is it's supposed to do for you. And so when you have that life vision and we know the life that you want to live, and we can evaluate where are you now and how are we going to get you to where you want to be, we can now plug in the right business model to get you there. But just picking any business model sometimes takes you so far away from the life that you want to live that, you know, I'm wrong to just tell somebody everybody should start out this way and take these steps. And then once you get to this level, you go to the next thing. And
and there was a part in the book where you were talking about, you know, passive income, people talking about rental properties and things. And there's I found the page actually right here. Passive income. Come on now, Alex. I've owned rental properties as well. There's nothing passive about owning single family homes. They require a lot of work. And, you know, it's things like that where you're thinking, well, I mean, if I do that, then I'm going to have all this passive income and I won't have to work. It's not the reality.
That's the one of the lies that people believe. And, you know, you've got guys who are on television with palm trees in the background saying, hey, buy these rental properties, and all you got to do is go to your mailbox and pick up the check. It's not true. In fact, many of the landlords who I know would be better off getting a part-time job at McDonald's, and they would do better than they do with their rental properties. And they wouldn't have the stress and everything that comes along with it. And rentals are great. I'm not knocking them, but if they don't fit your plan and you don't fully understand what you're getting into, then they don't make sense. And this is why it's so important that you know what is it that you want out of life so that you can design your business the right way. In fact, I'll just say this. Most of the programs that are out there would say, go down this path, build your business, become successful so that one day you can live a great life. Lifeonaire says, no, we're going to live a great life, and let me back up. Build your business and fit life into what's left. We say, no, I'm going to live my life. I'm going to fit business into what's left. We're going to design the business to serve the lifestyle that I want to live. And it's just a little bit of a twist, but it makes all the difference in the world.
Oh, that's huge. Yeah. And, I'm just over the last several months this year, I started doing my weekly planning on Sundays, for my week. And someone had told me, I forgot who it was, but what I started doing that was different was exactly what you were just talking about. I would plan the fun stuff first throughout the week. The things with my family and the fun things. Are you still there? I don't know if it froze up here.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, there you are. Okay, we got.
Can you hear me?
Some difficult. It's the first time we've done it with the Zoom call, so I guess the internet is slowing down a little bit. You still there?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here.
Just a minute here just to smooth out. I don't want to stop it and have it all disjointed, but all right, there we go. It seems like it's better. All right. So yeah, but just what you were speaking about, what I started doing, and I forgot who told me this, but was to plan out the fun things and the things that matter the most, the things that I want to do with my family first and the things that I want to do for myself first, and then putting in all of the work stuff around that. So it's never where that doesn't get fit in. It's always a part of the week, and it's changed things a lot.
I always tell people that, when I speak to them, they always say, well, my family is the most important thing to me. Well, if that's true, they should get on your calendar first. Usually your family gets the leftovers if there is anything left. And I say, the way you put your calendar together, you're demonstrating what's most important to you. And so, when you say that your family is most important, put them there first and give them the first priority, and then let business fill in the rest.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I like about that is before I was doing that, I would be so busy because I have more than enough things that I could be doing. Like there's never not something that I could be doing. And so having to, at the end of the day, come home and say, wow, just all that stuff I've been working on, and now I've got to figure out something that I want to do with my family. And just that, and that's why a lot of people just veg out and just sit and watch TV, because having to come up with that when you hadn't planned it is really hard to do. So when you're planning it at the beginning of the week, you end up doing things that you typically don't do because it would require that planning.
Exactly.
And you're fresh when you make that plan. I mean, it's I just love it. And I recommend everybody do it if you're not.
I'm almost embarrassed to say this sometimes, and all too often, and even yourself, I get an email from you and says, Steve, I know you're busy, and I really value your time, but I'm busy with doing a lot of things, but work, I'm almost embarrassed to admit that I work less than 20 hours a month. And that's what Lifeonaire Planning has really done for me, is that I just don't work that often. I don't work for money. That was probably the best way that I can put it. But I do a lot of things, and I have the free time to do so much what I want to do. I can be available to people who need me. And, ultimately that's the things that are most gratifying for me, is just being there to help people and to come alongside of them and to live life with them and help them through their struggles, or help them build their businesses, or help them become better fathers and husbands and things like that. When I'm working 60 to 70 hours a week, that's a bother. I don't want to hear from people. And so, doing this has really enabled me to become the person I want to be and live the life that I want to live.
Yeah, nice. So do you feel like that you see it really hard for people, even when they come up with their whys and why they're doing things and getting beyond the financial part of it? Do you find that people typically still struggle with saying no to certain things, or not working as much, or following a different plan? Do you find that it's not like a thing, the light bulb goes off and all of a sudden they're different people? Are you finding that people do struggle with that even after they've determined what they want?
It is varied. For some people, all of a sudden the light bulb goes off and they're just killing it right out of the gate. They're making drastic life changes, and within 6 months to a year, you look back and they can't even recognize their old life. And then there's other people who, the world around them is still telling them that they were on the right path. You were doing the right thing. You were working hard. And you start to share these Lifeonaire concepts with people and tell them about the changes you want to make in your life. They start to tell you you're crazy. And I was told by people, you're nuts. You're going crazy, when I was starting to make these changes in my life. And I just had to stop talking to those people or telling them what I was doing, because they were trying to discourage me from doing the things that I felt like I needed to do. And that's one of the beauties within the Lifeonaire organization, is that we've put together groups of people. So now you get to surround yourself with like-minded people. It's hard to find like-minded people at home. And so throughout the country, we have these groups, and once you get around like-minded people, it's amazing at what can happen. But it really boils down to when people develop that life vision, we could call it their Lifeonaire vision. If they embrace that and they say, I want this and I want it more than anything, I'm not going to let anything get in the way of me living it, they make it happen. And depending upon how far down the wrong path somebody is, sometimes they can turn things around in a matter of a couple of months. Sometimes it takes a couple of years, but it's well worth the effort, because the rest of their lives, they're able to experience life on a level that their peers and siblings and others will never be able to experience. And in fact, most Lifeonaires say that their biggest challenge is that because of the life that they're able to live now, their friends can't just go on a ski trip with them next week, or they can spontaneously do things. They say, thank God I got my Lifeonaire friends, because when I call them up and say, hey, I want to go to Vail in a couple of weeks and go skiing, do you guys want to go? They say, well, my Lifeonaire friends say yes, all my other friends say they can't. And so it takes some time for some people, but sometimes it's very quick. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 years, but it is that mentally embracing that this can happen.
And so you tie in real estate investing with that training, correct? I mean, it's not just change your life and focus on these things. It's here's how you can maybe accomplish what you're trying to do without spending all the time. Am I right in saying that?
To a certain degree, yes. Lifeonaire is for everybody. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Because of my experiences in the real estate investing world, the majority of people who are part of the Lifeonaire organization today are somehow or another tied to real estate investing. And so we have some of the top real estate investing pros across the country who are actually coaching students of ours. I help many of the top investors to take their businesses and transform them so that they can live the life that they want to live. And but at the same time, we've got beginners who are just getting started up, and they want to know, how do I build my business the right way? I don't want to go down the wrong path. I don't want a business that's all consuming, that dominates my life and is robbing me of life. I want to build this in such a way that it enhances my life and it contributes to the lifestyle that I want to live. And we love when we get somebody who is there. It's a whole lot harder to unwind what somebody has done and bring them sort of back to zero so we can get them moving in the right direction, versus somebody who is just getting started and has that gumption to just say, I'm going to do whatever it is I've got to do, but we can get them out of the gate running, right from the start. And so an awful lot of the people within the organization are tied to real estate investing. All of our coaches are real estate investors and have successfully built their businesses to live the lifestyles that they want to live. And I would say for just about every one of our coaches, real estate's their primary income, but Lifeonaire is they do because they absolutely love it. They love changing people's lives, and it keeps them sharp too.
Yeah, nice. So, and how does this work? Lifeonaire, like, you've got the book, and I think that's a great start for everybody to go out and get that book. And you can get that on Amazon, right? Lifeonaire.
It's available just about anywhere you can buy a book.
Okay.
So I think it should be everywhere.
Yeah. And then I'll put it also on the show notes page. So if you have trouble finding it or don't know how to spell it, it'll be on the show notes page at flippingjunkie.com/97. flippingjunkie.com/97. And that's 97 for the show, the episode number. But beyond that, you guys do these live events, right? You do a couple of day events in different cities.
We do. And the one thing that I always recommend is that people read the book first, see if this is something that's appealing to you. And if so, come on out to one of our events. And what we do at those events is we help people to develop their Lifeonaire vision. it is more difficult than what people think. As I'm sitting here talking about it, most people think that they can probably just sit down and write out a vision, for their life. And at the end of the day, it's not that difficult, except we've been conditioned to think differently. And so what we really help people to break through that conditioning at the events, to write a vision that is what they want, not what their parents want or what they think the right answer is, but it's your life. Mm-hmm. And our goal is to not influence your vision, but to help you discover really what it is you want your life to look like. How do you want to experience your life, and not let it be influenced by me, your parents, your coworkers. But you've lived that way long enough. You don't need that anymore. Now it's your turn. And so, but reading the book has actually by itself has transformed people's lives. We have some incredible testimonials where people's lives were flipped upside down just after reading the book. And then some of those people need to come on out to the event for a little extra shot in the arm to get them to that next level. But yeah, I'm passionate about getting that book into people's hands, because it's such an easy tool to even share it with others. Once people read it and they say, I love this, they can pass the book along or get it into the hands of other people as well.
Yeah, I was worried when I went to look for it today. I couldn't remember. I was like, I bet I let that out to other people, and I wonder if I ever got it back, because I wanted to bring it in to have it with me. But I'm so bummed too, because I missed. You guys were in San Antonio not that long ago, and I missed it because I was out of town. But you guys have plans to come back to Texas?
I'm sure we'll be there someday, but I personally don't even know what the Lifeonaire event schedule is. We
How
have
often do you do them?
Number of people do the events today, and that's just a testimony to the guys who are living it now. They love the message so much, they just want to go out and share it. We do those events for little to close to nothing, and there's not tons of money being made at those events. In fact, we just hope to get our costs covered just to share the message. And we have guys, they're just passionate about sharing it because it changed their life, and they want to help change others. So it's as people get the opportunity to do an event, they book them, and they're there, and they're off sharing the message.
Well, awesome. And
so if you can get us to San Antonio, we'll come back.
Wait, say that again?
If you can get us to San Antonio, we'll come back.
Okay.
Get us an audience there.
Yeah, sure. Let's see. Do you guys do that? I mean, do you try to plan out, having a certain number of people interested, and then you bring it to the city?
We do. And so most of the time it's people who are contacting us who can expose us to an audience, and then we'll bring a team of people out there to actually teach the event. And my hope in the near future is that we can begin to start bringing this message into the church. And that's where my focus is going to be. We've got some who are focusing on business groups. We've got some focusing on real estate groups, but they're just passionate about getting it out there. And we've got, half a dozen people who want to teach this event and want to share it with others. And
how long is the event? 2 days, 3 days?
We do it in 3 days right now. So it's, we've done a lot of bringing it to people so that they don't have to come to us, and making it more convenient for them. But over the course of 3 days, we take people through that process of developing their vision and finally having the action plan on how to start making that vision happen.
Okay. So what I want to say, I guess, like all the people listening to this podcast, if you are in San Antonio or close to San Antonio, and you're a part of the Flip Pilot Facebook group, and if you're not, just go to Facebook and look for the Flip Pilot Facebook group and ask for an invite. It's a private group, but we'll let you in for listening to the podcast. And just let us know if you're interested in if you're close to San Antonio and attending this event on Lifeonaire. And I'll work on trying to get some more people together. But that's the place. Let's do that on Flip Pilot Facebook group, talk about that, and try to see how much interest we can get Steve's team down there for a Lifeonaire event. I think that would be awesome.
That would.
And then I wouldn't have to travel very far.
Yeah. We would love it. Love the opportunity.
But if not, I think I'm willing to travel to see it. You guys do it where you are pretty often. Do you know what the schedule is like for that?
I am not sure when's the next time we're going to have one near me. I live up in Wisconsin, so you're all the way south. I'm all the way north, and
And it's cold right
I'm in
now
the
up there.
cold. Yes, it is getting cold as we speak. But we do an event here maybe once every 3 or 4 years,
Hmm.
and if you go to lifeonaireevents.com, whatever events are already on the books are there. And I don't think there's another event on the books until February of 2018. We did more events this year than we've ever done before, probably 15 to 20 of them this
Hmm.
year. And so any events that are already officially scheduled would be on that website.
Okay. And
But
I'll
I'd
put
say
that
read
on.
the book first.
Okay, yeah, get the book and then look at doing the event. So I'll put a link also on the show notes page, flippingjunkie.com/97 for that as well, for lifeonairevents.com. And how far are you? You're in Wisconsin now, right?
Correct.
How far are you from Oshkosh?
Probably an hour and a half.
Okay. Maybe
So
I'll
you
reach
go up
out
there
to
for
you
the
this
EAA
summer.
flying events.
What's that?
The
Yeah, it's breaking up again on us.
EAA at
It was breaking up. I
the
didn't get any of that.
did you, or is that what? So are you? I see you got Flip Pilot. Are you part of the EAA, and do
Oh,
you go to the events in Oshkosh?
yeah, that's what I was asking about that. So during the summer, I try to go to those events, and that's why all the things I do is all aviation based. It's a mix of flipping and aviation, two of my favorite things.
Awesome.
So that's the reason for that. But yeah, it's good to have passions outside of flipping, uh,
Absolutely.
family and everything like that. So how can people reach you? Is the best thing to go to lifeonair.com to reach out to you, or is if somebody else wants to get a hold of you, what's the best way?
Lifeonaire.com is by far the best way to reach us. I get quite a bit of emails, and sometimes through the website is the easier way to get in touch with me or anyone else in the organization. We're not just, it's not just Steve Cook anymore, and there's tons of people who are out there willing to help, who are living this lifestyle and teaching it. And so whether it's through the blog or just through the contact us page, there will be somebody who will reach on out and be willing to help you.
Great. Well, thanks again, Steve, for being on the show. I'm glad we were able to finally get this put together and do this show, and hopefully a lot of people out there, I'm sure people will get a lot out of this and really start to think about why they're doing what they're doing, and get that book and help that guide them to a better way of living. So.
I sure hope so. That's our whole goal. At a minimum, just help people understand that they can make different choices, and it doesn't have to be the way everybody around them says it needs to be.
Absolutely. I think we'll leave it at that. I couldn't say that any better. So thank you, Steve. And
Thank
we'll
you.
definitely be in touch. Have a
Have
great
a good
day.
day. Thanks.